Welcome one and all to Last Stop Penn Station podcast featuring Cary Silkin and Ian Riccaboni. They dive deep into Cary's wealth of stories, and no subject is off limits. From the world of wrestling to his ticket agency, growing up in New Jersey, drug-fueled underground days, hustling in the French Quarter of New Orleans, and endless days and nights in New York City, every story is worth telling.
Welcome back, everybody. This is another exciting edition of Last Stop Penn Station. I'm Ian Riccaboni, our guest of honor, Cary Silkin. Cary, let's talk about honor, Ring of Honor. We're about to go back in the bubble, or at least I am.
Yes, I'm jealous.
And it's going to be another good time, but if we reflect on some of the matches we've seen, the first round of the Pure Tournament's in the books.
Yes, the matches have been fantastic. You've been getting incredible praise.
No.
It's true, all over. The product's been getting incredible praise. This past Monday night, we saw...
Russ Taylor, Tracy Williams. That was a great match.
Yeah, I'd never seen Russ Taylor.
Rust, yeah. Not Russ, or not Rusty, Rust.
Fine-looking man.
He was put together, and you know what? That surprised me. I judged a book by its cover. Normally you see these guys that look like Russ Taylor that don't have the footwork or the agility or the stamina. You know, he's a muscle-bound man, and he came in and he surprised a lot of people and hold for hold with Tracy Williams.
And Tracy, who we've seen the last couple years, and I knew him from the Chikara days.
Right. He went under a different identity, which we won't reveal here.
But he really impresses me.
Yeah.
And under the guise of the pure rules, he was fantastic.
Right. And then the other match, PJ Black versus Tony Deppen. Tony's from around our area. Shamokin, which...
home of Rob Naylor.
And the Dunkin' Donuts that caught fire that really upset its local residents. There was a viral clip that I'll show you once we're offline. There was a young man who, quote, did his legal work with his lawyers at Dunkin' Donuts. It was a viral clip that went around. But Tony Deppen's a rising star, showed a lot of heart, a lot of fire. But PJ Black, he's been all around the world and had just a little bit more than Tony this time around.
Yes, and PJ's promo... I learned, his half-brother Jerome stayed with me for a couple years when he was Zizou.
Oh, did not know that. I didn't know that was his half-brother.
That's his half-brother.
Wow, okay.
And I had a friendship with him. He needed somewhere to stay, and good guy. He was in Ring of Honor. This is like 2013, 12, 13, 14, something like that.
Yeah.
Never was able to really take a foothold, but I communicate with him, and he's in South Africa. He's married. He's still involved in pro wrestling. You know, PJ and Zizou's father, Terry, or I think that's how he pronounced his name. It's spelled like Thie. He's like, they migrated from Paris or France to South Africa. I really don't know why, but he was a big name in South Africa, and PJ wrestled for them and wrestled all over the world. And he had some interesting things to say during his bio promo.
A witch doctor.
Yes.
So this is what I love about the Pure Tournament right now is I talk to these guys. I've shared locker rooms with them. I've driven, hours and hours on the road with them, specifically PJ. I've roomed with PJ. I didn't know that he had a witch doctor in his life. Is that fair to have a witch doctor? If you have a witch doctor, that gives you a leg up in this tournament, doesn't it?
I think so.
So
very interesting, and that was a great match also.
It was.
And what are we looking at for this coming Monday?
Yeah, we have round two matches. We're going to see Jay Lethal versus David Finlay. on one side, and then Jonathan Gresham in action on the other side. And Gresham's got an interesting road ahead of him, because he's drawing all of these names that are right at the cusp. He's drawing all these hungry guys.
We don't know who Gresham's wrestling?
We do. I'll double check that for you. But it's Lethal and Finley's a first time matchup, and that's going to be quite the bout. They've never faced each other one on one, and they've faced each other in tag team action. And the interesting thing about that is David Finley has the leg up on Jay Lethal in tag team action in a Ring of Honor ring. And, of course, Jay Lethal actually with a losing record in pure matches. So he's
hard to believe.
Hard to believe, especially for a former champion. So that by no means means that he will be a favorite in this match, but it will definitely be interesting to see. It'll be Jonathan Gresham versus Matt Sydal.
That should be a good one.
It will be a good one indeed. And, Matt Sydal hungry to kind of shake off some of the ring rust. And he's getting these guys that are going to be tough matches for him.
Well, this episode comes out this Friday. And every Monday night, in case you haven't checked it out, join us for the watch party. So we watch the current week's episode. And you can interact on social media with the big Ring of Honor stars, and it's a lot of fun.
It is, and you hear from the competitors who are wrestling in the matches that you're seeing, which is pretty cool. And we've trended every week, so it'd be a miracle if you haven't heard, because if you've been on Twitter at all from 7 to 8 p.m. on Monday nights, you would see ROH Pure is trending. So we invite you to come join us, use the hashtag. Let's make it 5 in a row. Why not, right?
It's the hashtag's ROH Pure.
Yeah. And speaking of pure, you were purely exhilarated last week when we were talking about traveling with SAGA. You launched a grand scheme to go to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on the day off of the SAGA Jethro Tull tour, and you are getting inches away from hanging out with your favorite band.
Yeah, and I sort of accepted the fact, what I left out of the, we had this big party. We had this big hangout Monday with the SAGA guys, and the Tull crew came into town late because after the Glen Falls show on Sunday, I learned out later they had what they called a crew night. So anytime there was a night off, the night of that show, they would rent out, this is a road crew, they would rent out like a double suite at a hotel. And Jethro Tull shows, whether it was 1982, 1971, or 2019, it's a very male-predominated audience. You don't get a lot of girls going on their own. It's not like a Bon Jovi, let's say.
Sure.
So the road crew would attempt to, and I found this out later, and we're going to tell the story. The road crew would attempt during the night of the Glen Falls show, or whatever city they were in where the party was going to be following, one of the road crew guys was assigned to handing out passes, which to the potential good-looking young ladies that were, and probably many were handed to guys' wives and girlfriends, because very few women came on their own, in an attempt to get them to come to this party. And
so not unlike the Rod Stewart soccer ball trick. This is just a little bit more direct.
Right. And maybe there was I never saw the actual invitation, but maybe it might have said, oh, the band will be there, but they weren't going to be there. And in Philly, during that all-night Coke binge, when I was with the SAGA guys, when Michael Sadler was panicking about having to go on the radio, let alone do the show at the Spectrum, I keyed in with this guy, Phil Freeman, who was the lighting designer for Tull. And between Phil and meeting this guy, the guy Howie from Rush, and also I remembered the name of the lighting guy from Bob Seger, this guy Gordy. And I had at that point in 1982, I had done my run with these club bands. I was lucky enough to be involved in the ill-fated It's So Nice to Be Civilized, but a Broadway play nevertheless.
Right.
So I had this more than rudimentary, I had a serious interest in lighting design and just, what went into this. And very few people would ask these guys, about these kind of questions, about like the guy from Rush telling me, yeah, we only use like 170 lamps, or Bob Seger's Gordy, whatever he told me. And this Phil Freeman, there was a particular lighting cue in the Tull show. We used to call them the lights from God, which was just a simple 18 white lights that just came from the back, and it was only used like once or twice during the show. And most people, when I go to see a band sometime, they throw like all the lights at you like on the first song.
Yeah. Like
you have to save something. It's like, and
it's like a good wrestling card.
It's like a good wrestling card. Yeah. And bringing this to Ring of Honor now, when we brought lighting into Ring of Honor, at first it was just the towers with the white ring lights, and but then I wanted to go to the next level, and the next level at that point was the moving lights in 2004 or 5, which back in 1988, 82, moving lights, and we talked about this before, Genesis had a patent on them.
Right.
So bands, were using just the basic light and gel. So the more lights, the better. You see these, I know we talked about sport, but you see these pictures of Queen with, they must have had like 800 lights, and, bands like the Stones, of course, and these big shows. So I was really fascinated, and I brought up these. I said to Phil Freeman, yeah, that part with the lights from God. He goes, oh yeah. He goes, I go, well, he goes, mate, it's just 18 white lights with no filter, and bang.
Wow.
And nobody asked him about that. But back to our story. So we leave Philly, and there's the next, after they go here and there from Philly to Pittsburgh to Ottawa to Buffalo, they wind up back on the 28th at the old New Haven Coliseum in New Haven, Connecticut. So this is a week later. And I don't forget, I had the Bible.
Right.
That the guy from the one of the guys from SAGA gave me. So I had the hotel information.
Right.
And I took a train up to New Haven and went to the hotel. This is the night before the show. I found a few of the guys in the bar and tried to do some business. And I probably didn't pay attention to, and I knew by now that you had to go when they got paid. Mm-hmm. And they had some money, but I got to interact with these guys more, the SAGA guys, and I was getting to know the Tull Road people well enough. And of course, they're going to be nice to me because I was the Candyman. Right?
You're the George Zahorian of the allegedly.
Tell our listeners who that is.
Sure. He has a history in our area, Allentown, Pennsylvania. Dr. George Zahorian in the early 1980s, was the ringside physician for the World Wrestling Federation and the Hamburg and Ag Hall arenas. And he was also implicated in distribution of steroids to WWF wrestlers from, I believe, I'm just spitballing here, sometime between 1980 and 1991.
And then they had that trial in 92-ish?
Yeah, I think it was 93, maybe 94. And he went on to trial, and then Vince McMahon, his name was implicated as well. Vince McMahon was acquitted. George Zahorian, I don't believe, was. I believe he was found guilty, but we'll get some more information on that. But he was well liked around the locker room because...
Sure he was liked. I'm sure besides the steroids, there was other, painkillers. And...
Sure. You could write prescriptions for amphetamines. You could write prescriptions for different things. And I guess that's one of the things that I wanted to ask you is, did you ever feel, you're 27 at this point?
Yeah.
And did you ever feel kind of like an outsider? Was there ever that devil on your shoulder and the angel on the other, the angel saying, hey, you're getting in a little too deep, or maybe this isn't your environment? Or did you just feel right at home?
What, with the bands?
Yeah, the bands and being the Candyman and all that fun stuff.
I knew my... why I was liked, but I carried myself properly. Mm-hmm. And once again, my maybe it was just with the lighting people or just my musical knowledge, I was able to jive with these guys, and we were able to talk, music and talk about some of this technical stuff, which fascinated me. And once again, years later, it was instituted in Ring of Honor on a small scale. But in Ring of Honor, when we started with these moving lights, first it was just 4 of them. Mm-hmm. Then we had 8 of them. Eventually, we had 16 of them, and they were all programmable. And there were great moments. Before we were on the air, I showed these guys a clip of these lights from God, and at Ring of Honor. Every guy had their own entrance with the moving lights programmed in a certain way. And Homicides was one of the best. It was just all red, and they would just spin, and everything eventually would just, and the great Mary, Wayne and Mary.
Wayne and Mary, yeah. From Maine, right? Or
now,
Vermont.
Right. Yeah. We had a lighting company, we'll get back to Tull in a minute, but we had a lighting company, Ethan from Massachusetts, and then I think, were they around? I guess when
I missed them like a ship in the night. I just missed Wayne and Mary. But Todd Sinclair, when I told him I was going to Vermont, he said, the only thing I know about Vermont is it's that Wayne and Mary are from there.
Well, and there was another lighting. We realized that we couldn't bring the... Ethan's lighting company on the road when we went out to Chicago and Detroit, but we wanted to have a standard of production. So we found a lighting company in Dayton, Ohio, and we had 2 classic guys, Rick and Jeff. I want to say Jeff Jones. It wasn't Jeff Jones, but Rick and Jeff. And they helped us with these moving lights, and that's where Mary learned how to program.
Oh.
So if Brian Danielson came out, they might have been red, white, and blue. If someone else came out, there was, greens. And it was very well done. Mm-hmm. And it was, I really believe it was a big part to early Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
Just turning it into a show.
Right. Yeah.
And The wrestling stood up for itself, but these are things that just added to everything. But I go to New Haven.
New Haven, yeah.
I'm hanging out with these guys again. There's not a lot of story. Oh, there is a little story to it. So they got to go set up. The load in is at like 9 in the morning, mm-hmm. and I called a couple of my friends who were in Jersey. I the often referenced Gary Fennell, the poor soul that had to pick me up on the side of the highway at 5 a.m. I said, come up to New Haven. I'm going to get good tickets, blah, blah, blah. And Gary and another guy came up. And
did they ever think you're crazy? Like, do you know what they're thinking at this point?
They knew I was nuts. They knew I was nuts. But they were rock fans, and they were Tull fans also. So they came up. But during that show, I walked back to where the sound and lighting boards were, and Phil Freeman saw me, and he said, "Come up," right? And I wanted to be there at that moment with the lights from God, and it's not like he had it. It was 18 lights. It's not like he had to push 18 buttons. Right. Everything, even back then, was programmed into just one bang.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was fascinating, and it was just really cool. So I drove home with my friends from that show, and once again, they went on the road again. Where could they have went? They're still on basically northeast Canada. Maybe they went to Bangor, Maine. Maybe they went to Montreal. Maybe they went to Syracuse. But eventually they were coming back on October 3rd to Providence, Rhode Island, the Providence Civic Center, right downtown.
Yeah.
We did Ring of Honor.
We've done West Warwick, the most recent, right by the airport.
You must not have been there that first.
No, I can't. I called the return in 2016. It's one of Ring of Honor's best markets television wise. We have our lead in is Saturday Night Live, and we do bonkers numbers there.
Well, the show that I was at was in downtown Providence at the convention center. Brought back memories. I went up via train to that show, and my friend Jimmy, who I was getting the supply from, who came to Philly, he didn't come with me. And I go to Providence, and I'm on the train. And I'm loaded up. I'm loaded for bear. And there's these college kids on the train going to somewhere in Boston. And, when you're doing coke, you like to talk. And, some people get paranoid and don't want to talk to anyone and rather just hide in a closet. But I was able to talk, but I'm by myself. So I start talking to these guys who are like probably 19, 20 years old. And one of the kids was really nice, and I mentioned to him, I'm going to see. Oh, he goes, "You're going to see Jethro Tull?" This in 1982 was an era when a 20-year-old would know who they are if they were rock fans.
Sure.
Not like telling a 20-year-old now. You could tell a 20-year-old who ask them who Led Zeppelin is, they're not going to know. Or
Big coin flip, yeah.
Right. But so the kid says to me. Now, once again, he was traveling past Providence to go to some school in Boston. And he says to me, "You think I could go to," he goes, "You think if I," he was real polite. He says, "You think I could get into the show if I went with you?" And I'm thinking like, yeah, probably. I mean, I know SAGA. I know the whole Tull Road crew. This should not be a problem. You really, you really want to go? I said, but are you going to be able to get yourself to Boston afterwards? He goes, yeah. I got my parents' credit card. So we get out downtown Providence. I find the buses, which were fortunately, it wasn't one of these drive into the building things.
Right.
The buses were there. And this was on a Sunday. And I go the SAGA guy. I find the SAGA guys, and we got there like it was a it wasn't. I should have gotten there earlier. Like we got there like around 6 o'clock at night.
Oh, yeah.
So SAGA is,
they're getting ready.
Yeah, they're getting ready, and the Tull Road crew, everything's set. They're sort of just hanging on the bus. So for whatever reason, I made it into the Tull Road crew bus, and with my party favors, and I went up to. I know what happened. I asked the SAGA guys, "Hey, listen, I got a friend of mine with me. He just wants to get into the show." Now, we'd also referenced this earlier. If there are any comps, if the comps aren't being used, or maybe some were being used, the rest are dumped back into the system.
Oh no!
In other words, the tickets were dumped in the system. Well, this was a night when, and this is my pre-scalping days, there were hundreds and hundreds of people looking for tickets.
Wow.
And there's plenty of scalpers in New England.
Yeah.
But there was a lack of tickets. And the SAGA guys said, we can't get any.
Yeah.
And so I went on the bus, and there I am with Phil Freeman and Puddin and these other guys. And they're like, mate, I don't know. So I said, all right, look, see if you could get, I said, I won't even go in. I just want one ticket for this kid, right? Yeah. So what happened was I left the bus, and I knew to check the box office. Mm-hmm. I'm looking for a scalper, whatever. If I got to spend $50, I'll buy a ticket for the kid. Mm-hmm. There were just no tickets around. Finally, Phil, the lighting guy from Tull, says, just give them to me. So, and I didn't go to the show. Wow. I stayed on the bus. Mm-hmm. He got the kid in. Mm-hmm. He got him a nice seat. There was a single somehow. Yeah. He must have had to tell Ian Anderson that my mother just came to town. So he'd have to not make an extra $29 that night. So the kid got into the show. Mm-hmm. And I was hanging on the bus, and during the time on the bus before the show, they tell me, the road crew guys, oh, we're having crew night tonight. You should hang out. And I said, well, what is that? They go, well, we have a party after the show. We try to get some birds to come. And because we have tomorrow off, and then we're flying to Virginia Beach, Hampton Road. What is it, Hampton Roads?
Yeah, Hampton, yeah.
So the kid goes to the show. Everything's cool. The show's over. I get a room at the hotel where the road crew's staying. Once again, you don't see the band. They're in their own world. And I'm sure they were crashing and flying the next day to Virginia. Mm-hmm. But so I went to this crew night party, which they failed to yield a lot of birds. And if anyone's wondering what that is, these are, girls.
Right.
There was a few. And it wound up mainly being the guys from the road crew and a couple of friends and a few of these fans, and maybe someone got lucky, but it didn't pan out. But it was their party night. So now the night's drawing to an end, and I went there with a lot of stuff, and they were getting paid the next day. But the next day is an off day, and then they're in Virginia Beach.
Right.
So I'm like, what am I going to do? So Phil Freeman says, I'll get you a plane ticket. Just come down. Right. So, because the SAGA guys, I could have driven with them.
Sure.
I could have just got on the bus and went, because when that show was over, they're not staying for no crew nights. They're driving. they got to take the bus.
Mm-hmm.
So what would that be, like a 10-hour drive or something?
Yeah, I mean Norfolk, Virginia Beach is probably about 5.5, 6 from here, and then up. So yeah, it's probably between 8 and 10 depending on traffic.
Right.
Yeah.
So Phil Freeman was kind enough. I hang out, and we got the kid. I made sure to get the kid to the bus, to the train station.
Nice.
He had a great time. He was at the crew, just what they wanted at the crew night. A 20-year-old college student. That's the last thing they wanted. Male. But he made his way off to Boston, and there I am on a flight with the whole Toll Road crew, including Kenny Wiley, who was the stage manager, who was anti-drugs, all business. There was another guy named Basil, but he could be Baz. He was like Ian's security and so-called tour manager. Mm-hmm. And except for, I don't think Kenny Wiley was at the crew nights party, but Baz was, and he was cool. And all these other roadies, there's like 20 of them. So I'm just on this plane flying to Virginia. So when we got there, I remember I said to Phil, I said, because I had the book, I said, thank you. I go, I'll see you by the hotel, mm-hmm. right? I didn't want to announce to the, like if Baz knew that I knew where they're staying, blah, blah, blah. So I get to Virginia Beach. Prior to that, I called up Jimmy. Come down. You better bring some extra stuff because I overdid I wasn't a very good businessman that night. So
did they orchestrate IOUs? Is that the reason, or
no?
Am I jumping ahead here?
No, you're not jumping ahead. And we asked this question last time. I don't think they were really trying to take advantage of me. They were telling me, come tomorrow, and they even bought me a ticket. We'll have plenty of money. Mm-hmm. So I get to Virginia Beach. I tell Jimmy, he goes, what do you mean bring more? You had like an ounce. I go, well.
And that's a lot for those that.
Yes. I said, well, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. So I go to the hotel. And at that time, I want to say Virgin, but it's not Virgin Airlines. There were these discount airlines, mm-hmm. and I just can't remember, like Allegiant type.
Sure.
But there was a million different ones. And they were running a special from Newark to this Virginia Beach area airport for $19.
Wow.
Right? So.
And that was before things were deregulated, so everything was even more expensive at that time.
Well. I don't know.
Or about the time that the deregulation happened. It was still more expensive than now.
Right. But we're talking almost 40 years ago.
It's true.
So Jimmy's like, all right, I'll meet you. You sure this is going to work out? I go, I'm pretty sure. So I go to the hotel. Now here's all the SAGA guys again. Mm-hmm. And here comes Jimmy. And Phil Freeman did not lie to me. Everyone had gotten paid. So Sunday night was Providence. Sunday after that was the party. Mm-hmm. Monday afternoon we're on this plane, and Monday is an off day. Mm-hmm. So there's another party.
Right.
So we're hanging out, and we're having a good old time. And yes, they had money, and Jimmy was happy that he came. And so now we go to Tuesday, where there's this show at the Hampton Roads Coliseum. Mm-hmm. And this is where I might have made a fatal error, or else the writing was on the wall anyway. Now, I'd mentioned to you in the last episode when I got to hear the sound check, the SAGA guys told me, don't go in the back. Just, and I wouldn't. If, you tell me that, I'm not going to do it. Well, this Tuesday, now I felt very comfortable with the Toll Road crew guys. I felt too comfortable.
Right.
And they had given me they didn't give me the golden Willie, but they gave me the backstage, all access backstage, but it wasn't the laminated real McCoy.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd been up all Monday night. Jimmy was at the hotel. He goes, I'll meet you before the show. We were going to go to the show. And what I did was, it was like 3 p.m. So I was really fascinated to see how, the load in and, flying the lights up. And, I knew not to be there for the sound check. But this is at like 3 o'clock.
Sure.
The band didn't get there till 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
So I'm moseying around and I'm just watching this and that. And it's really cool. This is something, wow, maybe I could be a roadie for a rock band. If it wasn't Jethro Tull, maybe it'll be Rush. Maybe it'll be...
maybe SAGA will blow up.
Right, yeah. or anybody. I didn't care. Let me be a roadie for Marshall Tucker.
There you go.
So...
Another great flautist.
True. There was a guy... I remember walking over and I'm seeing this guy. He was called Dr. Dave. I had met him at the crew night party, and he's soldering, and I'm like, I go, what are you doing? If you mind, he goes, oh, his full-time job was just to repair stuff.
Okay.
Just cables and, whether it was musical or if it was sound equipment or if it was lighting stuff, he just was there as a repairman, and they just kept him there. So I'm mulling about, and I'm looking at my watch, or I ask someone what time it is, and it's about 20 to 4, and I knew, let me get out of here. Mm-hmm. So I go up to the tour manager from SAGA. And I said, hey, man, is it cool if now the hotel was maybe a mile down the road. I said, is it cool if I just go on the bus and just sort of crash for an hour? And he was like, yeah, no problem. So he comes on the bus with me. Now, after the Virginia show, they weren't going willy-nilly. They were heading due south. They were going to do like Charlotte, Atlanta, Jacksonville, Orlando, Miami, right? And I remember saying to this guy, is there any shot, and you could tell me no, if after tonight's show, I just cruise down, with you guys to the next few shows. And at that point, he said to me, yeah, you want to, and you want, I was like, at this point, 2 weeks had accrued. Right. I was like part of the furniture. And he's like, yeah, sure. He goes, you're not going to have a bunk. Mm-hmm. I go, whatever, and I was thinking, man, that would be nice just to run out of the stuff, let Jimmy go back. We got most of the money back and be able to go south, right? Like a little vacation, winding up in Florida and, getting to be on this tour, and I'll go to some more shows and I'll get some rest, and maybe, it was this now it's getting into the middle of October. So you're going to get in some nice weather, and it's like, you ever seen Midnight Cowboy?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Like in the end when they're going to Miami Beach and Dustin Hoffman dies. But I wanted to be like, sitting in Miami Beach, in the sun. Anyway, he says, yeah. He goes, look, go to the back of the bus and crash out, man. Get some rest. So I'm like, all right, thank you so much. So I lay down and I was able to fall asleep, and I really don't know how much time went by, but it wasn't a lot. And the door opens up, and it was the tour, the same tour, I wish I knew his name, but the tour manager from SAGA, who had just granted me permission to go with them all the way to Florida, granted me permission to sleep, and he opens the door, and I was laying horizontal on one of these couches, and I remember him getting on his, like, bending down, and he says, "Hey, Cary." Like wake, and I'm like half. I open my eyes. I'm like, yeah. What's up, man? He goes, "Listen, I'm really sorry to tell you this, but I'm getting heat from Kenny Wiley, the one of the Tull tour managers, and he knows what's going on with you, and he doesn't want to see you, or he doesn't want you to be seen. So I just can't have you." He goes, "Get some rest." And he goes, "But I can't have you come after tonight." And I was like, "All right, I understand." And he says, "But get some sleep, man. It's cool. You're cool here. Don't worry." So I'm like, oh. So he closes the door, and I don't know if I started weeping, but I was like so sad. I'm like, oh man, it was just, there I was, ready to be laying on the beaches of Collins Avenue. What's the hot part of Miami?
Oh, geez, yeah.
What, AJ? What's the
South Side?
South Beach.
South Beach.
Yeah, there I would have been in South Beach. Not to mention all these other exotic cities, like they're exotic to me. Charlotte, and Atlanta,
mid-20s. Right? I remember the first time I got to start to travel, and everything's new and exciting, even if it's, Charlotte, or Atlanta, which to us, might be small because we're used to New York City or Philadelphia, but they all have their own charm and their own, unique delicacies and things like that. You'd probably already eaten the Cuban sandwich in your mind, laying on the beach.
And I was hungry after all this. So I couldn't continue sleeping.
Yeah.
And I get off the bus. I sneak. This was a place where the buses came in. I don't want to see Kenny Wiley or the evil Kenny Wiley. So I sneak out of the back and I walk the 3/4 of a mile or whatever it is to the hotel. Might have been 5 p.m. by now, or maybe 6. And I meet up. I had planned to meet up with Jimmy at 6 o'clock at the bar at the hotel, and then we're going to go to the show. So he had no. He didn't know that I was trying to go south. He just was, So I don't even think I brought it up to him. And we went to the show, and as much as I loved the show, but I'd seen it a number of times already, and they left us really good tickets. I just couldn't enjoy myself. And Jimmy, who was just a moderate fan, was like in the middle of the show. I'm like, "Hey man, I'm going to go back to the hotel. I'm just going to go to the bar." He goes, "Well, why?" He goes, "You didn't even do the good songs yet." So,
the songs that Jimmy knew.
Right. Yeah. So I go, I'll see you back at the hotel. He knew something was wrong. So I leave, and we had a room at the hotel, and we still had more stuff. And I go to, not a lot, but I go to the room, and I was crying in my beer, or cry. You don't want to cry in your Coke, you'll ruin it. No. So I'm just bummed out. I remember making a couple of phone calls to some of my friends back home. Hey, I'm in Virginia Beach. I didn't tell them the bad parts. I'm only telling them the good parts. So anyway, Jimmy, show ends at 10:48 as usual.
On the dot.
On the dot. And I go down to the bar, and Jimmy gets back there around 11:30, and he goes, "Oh, you should have stayed, man. It was great." I go, "Yeah, I know. What I've seen it. I've seen this 5 times. I just wasn't in the right spirit." Anyway, we're having a few drinks, and there's fans in the bar, and we weren't even thinking of this, but this is where the band was staying. But that doesn't mean they're going to go out in public.
Sure.
You know, they were as unpublic as you could get.
Mm-hmm.
But I might have went up, we might have, he and I might have went upstairs to do a couple more lines. And I think closing time in Virginia was a little bit late. It was like 3 a.m.
Mm.
So when we went back down to the bar, and now it's like, I don't know, past midnight, we go back in and I see Martin Barre standing sort of by himself, David Pegg, the bass player, talking to a few people, and I don't know about the keyboard player or the drummer. I didn't notice them, but there was a half circle bar that I remember like it was yesterday. And sitting at the very end of the half circle, the one that would be away. Mm-hmm. In other words, if you walked in the door, you got a half circle when you first come in, and then the other side.
Gotcha.
At the far end, there's Ian and this guy Baz sitting next to him. And I went up to Martin Barre, and I didn't say, "Oh, remember I met you in Nassau and you saw," and I said to him, and I knew better. I said, "Hey, if you want to party, we have." So he goes, "Oh, no, mate." He goes, "I just have a little wine." He goes, "No drugs for me." He goes, "But thank you." Right? I'm like, "Oh, okay." So at that point, I had to go over to Ian Anderson.
Oh.
How can you not?
Yeah.
I mean, if Bruce was sitting at the bar,
I know.
If Trent Reznor was sitting at the bar, you're going to want to say, I knew not to ask about drugs, but just say.
Right. And one of the bigger regrets I have, Bon Jovi, one night I was at the Stone Pony, see Gary U.S. Bonds, Bon Jovi comes up on stage, and he's just hanging out the rest of the night. It's not a huge crowd. And one of my big regrets, I was with my friend Chris, who you know, and we didn't go say hi. We didn't, and that's a regret.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So there's Ian. He's smoking a pipe at the end of the bar, drinking whatever he's drinking. And I he's got his security guy / tour manager / security guy next to him. And I walk around, and the Baz guy knew me from the crew night and being on the plane. Yeah. But he was cool.
Okay.
He wasn't the Kenny Wiley guy.
Right.
And so he didn't say he didn't give me the high sign.
He didn't yell kayfabe.
No. So I remember tapping Ian on the shoulder. And I said, "I just want to tell you how much I enjoy your music, and it's meant so much to my life." And he was smoking the pipe. And the same thing happened to me with Andre the Giant, which we'll get to in another episode.
Okay.
He looks over his shoulder at me and gives like a quarter of a nod, like, didn't say thank you, didn't say nothing, and turns back. And that was it. So, oh well. But now my friend Jimmy is sitting at a table with Dave Pegg, the bass player, and there were some girls, and might have been a couple, and another girl, and Dave Pegg is very friendly, and we made the same offer to Dave Pegg. Hey, listen, I don't know if you're interested, but if you want to do a line, and he's like, yeah. And here comes Dave Pegg up to our room. I think we brought one of these other random people, and there we have a live member of Jethro Tull. And Dave Pegg says, "Listen, I can only do a little bit." He goes, "I got to work tomorrow. I don't want to, I don't want to miss the plane. Right. I've done this before." So we partied with him. He was very nice, I'm asking him these questions that he doesn't want to talk, that he's like, oh, what's your favorite song to play? And I know in his mind he was saying, none of them. I'm sick of all of them, But he was polite and he answered. And he was very cool. We must have hung out for around an hour. And he said, look, I got to go to bed. We got a flight to Charlotte tomorrow, like 10 in the morning. Mm-hmm. Well, I said, well, it was really nice meeting you. And maybe we'll see you down the road. So the night ended, and Jimmy and I, at least it wasn't a financial disaster. It was a moral, for me, it was personally a little bit of a moral disaster. But it was the wrap up of being, and I should have mentioned this at the beginning of this episode, but if we have a lot of regular listeners, they heard on the last episode, I want you to put your favorite band into the blank. This is not a Jethro Tull story. It's a story of the idea of being around your favorite performers. And so it was a 2-week odyssey. And the funny thing was, the next morning, and this is in the days where you just bought the plane ticket at the desk and just walked
on the plane.
Right. The taxi from the airport from the hotel to whatever airport it was like $24, but the plane ticket to Newark was only $19.95. So we went back to Newark, and boys and girls, that was my 2-week odyssey in 1982. I'll have to torture our listeners with this. Strangely enough, and I showed it to these guys, the tour program was sort of an homage, so am I saying that properly, mm-hmm. to the road crew. And with all this technical stuff, of course, it showed pictures of the band and bios, but he wanted to feature the road crew, and he did. And a few years later, like 5 or 6 years later, on an outtake album of songs, and I'm sure
Bruce
has
they
keep coming up with Jimi Hendrix stuff, like
right.
like
Tupac has had more #1 albums since right. he passed away.
Zeppelin too, there's like hundreds of anything. So there were these outtakes, and anyway, there was a song that appeared on one of these, and what was the name of it? It was called Crew Nights.
Wow.
Right? So apparently this crew night thing had gotten either under Ian's craw or he just accepted it, but it was enough to for him to write a song about the aforementioned crew night, which I'll quickly try to read. If you haven't turned the podcast off yet, please stay with us for another minute. And it goes, tear it down in double quick time to get the A truck shifted about midnight. So like the first line is like, let's hurry up and get this stuff packed up so we could go to the party, right? The locker rooms are empty, but the strobe tuners still spin with their pitching light. And someone with a yellow pass gives out precise directions as to where and when. And here am I with a drumstick while young girls set to rendezvous and be recognized again. Tomorrow is an off day. Be in Baltimore by Thursday. That's the only law. There's a suite down at the hotel reserved for making merry with connecting doors. The lighting man has already improvised a bar and printed invitations to the ball. Off-duty cops line corridors wearing tour T-shirts proudly, and the band may even call. Crew nights, no flashlights, no folding knives, best boots and road suits and 9 lives. And then the next part, it goes, the next verse is, feeling that it might be wrong to temporarily belong to the PA man, some angel from the Midwest is regretting being undressed with no suntan. His Polaroid is snapping. The head carpenter is rapping on the gates of dawn. Sitting lonely with a warm beer, the girl with dental braces wishes she hadn't gone. Crew nights, no bar fights or readers' wives, thin walls and late calls, and 9 lives. Crew nights, no flashlights or folding knives, best boots, road suits, and 9 lives. Wow. So it's just interesting that it was packaged together enough, and I experienced that. And I'm sure people would like to get backstage at Ring of Honor.
Absolutely. Well, I was going to tie that back to wrestling.
Please do.
That's one of the quickest ways if you're trying to break in to be told no thank you. The idea if you are too familiar or too comfortable. And that usually goes for folks that aren't wrestlers, because if you are a wrestler and you're backstage, you're either with somebody who's going to vouch for you and tries to introduce you to the executive producer or to management or someone that has a decision. And at that point, you're usually dressed up and you usually just stand at the monitor and watch and meet the right folks. But there are people that want to work on the crew, or that you want to be an announcer or want to be something other than what they are. And that's actually the quickest way for someone to speak up and say that, hey, that person needs to go. They're rooting around a little too much, or they're in a spot they shouldn't be in. And usually that comes from the discretion, like Ian Anderson, from some of the locker room leaders that I don't know who that is. He's making me uncomfortable. She's making me uncomfortable. Can you please get them out of here?
Right. And I like the way Ring of Honor, and it was this way back in during my ownership, where, I mean, if Nigel's girlfriend, even that, they didn't come in the back.
No, they came. They said hi, maybe, right. And then there's a ticket, and they enjoyed the show.
The Briscoes family, as much as we love
them, but
Papa Briscoe,
but they hang out.
Right. It's like sacred ground.
Yeah,
it's sacred ground. So, So, I hope that people enjoyed this story. I hope that people are enjoying Last Stop Penn Station, because we certainly enjoy doing it.
It's a lot of fun. I didn't see the heartbreak coming on this one, and that must have been devastating. What was the first thing that you went through your mind? Did you consider giving up on the band because they were okay?
No.
Did you at all consider maybe not seeing them live again? Was there any fear that you might be found out? Walking through.
I didn't. I understood that business is business. Mm-hmm. And I understood, that these SAGA guys were so damn nice to me and had been so and they were legitimately willing to let me go south until they were told, this guy's got to go.
Yeah.
But check this out. If you're a faithful listener, and I didn't mention this when we were doing our New Orleans section, mm-hmm. Fast forward 3 years to my misadventures in New Orleans.
Mm-hmm. Which you can go back and listen to.
I think we're on our 31st episode.
Yeah, we're trucking along here.
We're doing good. And I'm eternally grateful for Ian and AJ for making this happen. Our friend Eric Nordrum, who helps me with some of these notes and other things. And that we're able to get this stuff out there. But one thing I didn't mention in the New Orleans, with all that madness, was that one night, and it wasn't, I had money, I might have had $150. It wasn't like I noticed that Hart is playing at the Lakefront Arena.
Oh.
And SAGA is the opening act.
No way. Okay, and that's where Full Circle Ring of Honor runs the UNO.
We had a very good house there.
Second largest ever. Yeah.
Right. So I'm like, I got to go try to find these guys. It's 3 years later, and I don't know how I didn't notice. This is back when you'd buy the newspaper in the day, mm-hmm. and somehow during that day, I heard. It just went over my head. And you didn't get a lot of touring acts. You know, New Orleans was on for every band, but be that as it may, I might have realized it at like 7 o'clock at night on that Saturday. And the guy, the Sarge, wouldn't loan me his car. Oh. So I had to take a bus, right? I had to take a bus. And now I get to the lakefront. And if you remember correctly, that is a building where the trucks and buses can go in.
Yeah, you can go in the back and underneath.
So
yeah.
I go buy a ticket, right, out of the window. It wasn't a sold out show, like $11. And I'm in but SAGA was done already. If they were doing their set, I could have snuck down to see the sound man, Alec, that I was, and be like, if he was still there,
right.
3 years later.
Sure.
But they were done. So I'm sitting there listening to Barracuda.
And Magic Man.
And some of the other great Heart songs. And
was Crazy on You, Heart?
Yes, it was.
All right.
Yeah. And they've done some very good covers of, they do a great, which girl is the one that's still of the sisters?
Now I'm thinking of Susanna Hoffs, who also does covers of the Bangles.
No. The two sisters that are the
Wilsons?
The Wilsons, thank you. Nancy Wilson?
Yes.
Ann Wilson?
Nancy and Ann Wilson.
One of them still performs, not as Hart though, and she does this killer. I think it was even done at the Kennedy Center for Zeppelin, or maybe the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, not the Kennedy Center. Anyway, Hart's playing, and I'm like, you know what? Fuck this. Let me just go to the back, to where the trucks are, where there's going to be a guard there. So it was similar to the Allentown Rush thing. There's a guard back there. Mm-hmm. There's no one back there. I mean, everyone's in the show. Right. So I said to this guy, can you do me a favor? I'm good friends with Ian Cryin, from the guitar player from SAGA. And there's no way for me to get it. Would you be able maybe to at least give him a message that Cary's here? And the guy said, okay. And I just stood there and waited. And about 5 minutes later, Ian Cryin comes running up.
No way.
Cary, holy shit, what are you doing here? Right? So they brought me in the back. I went on their bus. And guess what? They had the cocaine that night.
A happy ending,
right?
If you're into that kind of thing,
right? And
oh my goodness,
it fit. They're like, "What are you doing here?" I go, "It's a long story.
It's a long, strange tale."
Well, it's so good to see you guys, and I remember leaving that show. Leaving those guys. I was maybe with them for like an hour before they had a split, and it felt so good. And I took a cab back to the Alpine to meet up with Debbie, or maybe Liberal Libby. Maybe that was the night of Liberal Libby. But yeah, so that was the wind up to SAGA. And these guys are still around. Mm-hmm. They're still around, and I'd love to be able to reunite with them one day. But if this is your first time listening to us, you got 29 thrill-packed episodes filled with great pro wrestling, Ring of Honor stories, rock and roll stories, New York City stories, stories of Ian's mom and Rod Stewart.
Just one.
And many others. Subscribe to us, please.
Absolutely. And be sure to continue to check out the Ring of Honor Pure Championship Tournament, which is going to be a lot of fun this week. It is Jay Lethal versus David Finlay and Jonathan Gresham versus Matt Seidel. But I'm looking forward next week. We had on the docket kind of an audible to talk about cards and collectibles and things like that.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, let's do a fun one. I'm going to be in the bubble, so what you're hearing will not be live per se. We may be talking about things to come, but we won't spoil things for you. So that'll be next week. I've been into collecting these vintage wrestling cards, Cary. We can dive into those.
Well, we'll talk about some various collecting, including AJ's affinity for National Geographics
and
other.
When you were in the newspaper for your baseball card
We're going to
collecting.
get to that.
Yeah, so that's all that and more coming your way next week. For Cary, I'm Ian. For Lamb Chop and AJ, we'll see you next week. Thanks for listening, everybody.
We hail you for listening to Last Stop Penn Station podcast. Rate, review, like, subscribe, and share on your favorite platform. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or at laststoppennstation.com.